sometimes it's a blessing and it's a curse, because
Mhm.
sometimes I wish that I could be just more traditional, because I think definitely trying to carve my own path comes with its own difficulties and its own sort of like really needing to like trust myself and like really needing to like fight against typical like expectation.
Are you struggling with your identity? Either you might be mixed race, half Asian and half European, or you could be someone who is an immigrant who have lived most of your life in North America or overseas, but grew up in a traditional home with Asian parents, then this episode is for you. We also talk about some personality tests that we use to figure ourselves out, and you can find those information in the description box below. Make sure you click that subscribe button down there to find out more information regarding yourself, identity, mental health on this channel. Welcome back to Unconventional Asians, where we interview Asians who dare to be authentic. And today we have Victoria Weber here, who's a consciousness consultant. And I'm going to quote her website. Her diverse and unique background allows her to create innovative solutions for her clients. So welcome to the show, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Coming on. Yeah, we're so excited. So tell us a little bit about your background, actually, like how, because you're a mix, right? A mixed half Asian.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my mom's from Taiwan. So she moved here in the 70s and had my sister in Colorado. So I have a sister who's full Chinese. And she's about 16 years older than me. So she actually just turned, I'm 27 and she just turned 43 yesterday. So, so yeah, so there was always interesting dynamics like in my family, because my grandma was still alive when I was little on my mom's side. So she was like helping to raise me. And then she had raised my sister, but there was like this weird, but then my mom was always working. So my sister would take care of me. My grandma would kind of take care of me. And I always had like a Chinese nanny, or I went to like Chinese daycare growing up. So I was very like immersed in like the Asian culture, and I went to Chinese school.
Okay. And you can speak Mandarin.
Yeah, that's so cool. Mandarin. Yeah. So yeah, the Asian culture is certainly a very big part of my life. And I grew up very much with that like sort of immigrant mentality of like, you know, like working very hard and just like that, like everything you were kind of describing when we were talking of like, you know, there's a lot of like my sister's a banker, my dad's a lawyer, my mom's an engineer. So there was a lot of, I felt this like expectation to be something very traditional. And so, but I've always been interested. I've always been very free spirited, and I love to play sports and I love to be outside. And I always, so it's like my whole life, like I feel like I've been conflicting with that sort of like very strict expectation of like who and what I'm supposed to be versus like this like free spirited nature that I am. And so yeah, so I mean, I always loved to play sports. And so I went to school and I studied psychology instead of chemistry. You know, I went in pre-med and took chemistry and got an F, and that quickly, like quickly changed my medical trajectory. And so I studied psychology, which I really loved, and I danced, and I took creative writing classes, and I took a lot of classes that were focused on writing, because I really loved to write, and I was always interested in literature and like philosophical and religion. And so I took like, compared religion classes, I took philosophy classes, I took, you know, just things to sort of like expand my consciousness. And so I've always been very interested in spirituality, and I grew up Buddhist too. So I had this like very like Buddhist foundation for, you know, kind of wanting to connect with this like larger idea and this like larger consciousness, and like, and I've always been very drawn to people who are kind of like tapped in like that as well. So yeah, and then I moved to New York, and I worked in a low-income school for a little bit, and that sort of really informed my decision to go to social work school. And so I just recently, probably on May 10th, like about a year ago, I graduated from USC with my master's in social work. And so I studied, thank you. I studied non-traditional social work. So I studied like social change and innovation, because I'm very interested in how, you know, social movements and sort of like global impact. And so I was in the Philippines studying human trafficking, and we did like a video ad campaign for this movie, or for this woman who has been sort of wrongfully imprisoned in Indonesia for like the last like 10 years. So we did like a pro bono sort of publicity campaign for her about her situation. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to share it with you if you're interested in
That's
it.
such an interesting background. I love the combination like of spirituality, religion, and everything with social work. It's actually really like, well, I don't think it's really separate right now, but if you actually merge them together, it's like a superpower.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I'm hoping to like go for. Like, so, sorry, my mom just came in. I'm at home with my parents right now.
Yeah. Oh, we all are.
So that concept of boundaries in Asian families does not exist.
Well, that's perfect. I actually kind of like that. It's like very authentic, right? It's like you should be in the camera. It's like, Mom, okay, one of those things again. It's like, 吃饭了 or whatever, like, you know.
Exactly. Or like, like 跟阿姨讲话.
Yeah.
Call all your aïs, and it's like, yes, Mom, I did. Please relax.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
and can you talk a little bit about your dad?
Yeah.
Your mom is Taiwanese, and then your dad is his background.
So my dad's from the Midwest. He's like German and French, and so my grandmother on my dad's side was actually adopted. So so we didn't know like what she was for a really long time. So I recently took one of those like 23andMe DNA tests, which was really cool. So I mean, my grandpa's German, so like I always knew I was going to be part German. So, but it came back that I was German, French, and then the rest is like very Northern European, and then a little bit of Eastern European, but basically like North European, German, and French is like my other side, and then the rest. But what was really interesting on my mom's side that I found out was that I'm actually like 10% Thai. So some of my ancestors like must have come from Thailand. Yeah, it was really interesting. I always thought I was just like 50% Taiwanese. Well, I think like originally my grandparents came from like the Fujian area of China.
Right.
So I obviously like have some Chinese in me mixed with not indigenous Taiwanese. So but I actually was like 10% Thai. So it was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really fun to take. So I've been wanting my dad to take his so we can get like a better idea of like what he is. Since he's 50% like unknown right now. But yeah, it was cool to kind of take that but similar, like my grandparents on my dad's side like grew up like during the Depression era, and then this sort of like the German mentality, like the German immigrant mentality, I think is very similar to like the Chinese immigrant mentality of just work very hard, like you know, do everything like to the best of your ability, like that, just sort of like pull yourself up by the bootstraps. So I have both of those sort of like work hard and just like kind of like push through sort of like mentality coming from both sides of my family. So I've never really felt like that sort of space to just like kind of go with the flow and like figure things out. And so when I'm kind of in a transition period right now myself, like launching my consulting company and moving away, because I was working in traditional social work when I first graduated, even though I didn't study that. And so, you know, coming from sort of like a more routine job into sort of the consulting field has been a little bit messy for me, for sure. So so I'm still trying to find my bearings, but I'm potentially moving on to like I had my first official client. I was up in Washington for a little bit, so I had my first official client, and I was helping an independent clothing boutique with their social media management. And so now I'm back in Orange County, and so I've been sort of connecting with the local art community and potentially going to be helping doing some consulting and media management for them right now. And so that's kind of where my company is right at this moment. But really, I would love to see it expand more into sort of like a social, you know, sort of consciousness platform.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
ask you, what does that mean? Like consciousness, like business or consulting?
Right. So for me, so it kind of goes back to like what I studied as a
Yeah.
non-traditional social work student. So I did a lot of organizational management and like business development for nonprofits and sort of like community outreach, community development, PR, grassroots campaigning. So I have a lot of like that sort of experience. So it's sort of combining that sort of business, organizational management approach with my interest in like spirituality and consciousness. So like I'm potentially going to be partnering up with the arts gallery in and their art is very spiritual and it's very Aboriginal and tribal, and so there's this very sort of spiritual sort of effect to the art. And so I'm drawn to companies like that as well. So like, and I recently connected with a sort of metaphysical store that sells, you know, crystals and Tibet, like the more traditional, what you think of like as spiritual. And so I like to think that the clients that I'm attracting sort of have that energy as well.
100%. That's why we're drawn to you.
Right. Who are sort of like tapped into like a larger energy or like into sort of, you know, holistic modalities of like yoga and Ayurveda,
meditation
and Eastern medicine. And so I think also growing like my Asian heritage also informs a lot of that because like there's a lot of emphasis on sort of like Eastern medicine is like, you know, I grew up doing acupuncture and taking herbs. And so I really don't like the sort of like Western approach to like health and medicine and stuff like that. So I tend to feel very resistant when I ever, you know, if I ever need to like take medicine or anything like that. So
that must be difficult though. Do you ever struggle with like your identity then? Because you're so diverse, like in your experience and even in your genes, right? So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say it's a struggle for sure. I mean, I think, you know, as I've gotten older, it's less important that I think when I was younger, I was very apparent of feeling like left out because I was always like too Asian for the white kids, but I was always too white for the Asian kids. And so I always felt like I was sort of like floating around in this sort of like interdisciplinary space. And, you know, but I'm always very drawn to like, you know, some of my closest friends have always been, have been Chinese or Asian. Like I feel that sort of like cultural connection, you know, but I always often feel drawn to other people who are half as well, who are sort of like navigating this like biraciality, because I think it is a difficult space to be in and it's very confusing. And, you know, I'm not sure that I've like 100% sort of like, it's sort of like settled in, but I accept the fact and I appreciate the fact that I have this, you know, very rich, diverse background that informs me as a person, as well as the Western side. And I think it just adds to the dynamic of who I am.
It makes you super unique.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I think now I'm in a space where I'm just coming to accept my uniqueness, that like I have to create my own space in this world. And so I think that that's what I'm like really navigating right now. And I want to, you know, when I meet with people and connect with people, I try to give off that sort of like accepting energy of like, I'm very all inclusive and I love to connect with people from all like socioeconomic backgrounds. And like, I've been to over 30 countries. I've been to like exposed to a lot of different cultures. And so I just tend to be more open, I feel like, to differences and sort of edges than, you know, what I've experienced in my life. And so maybe my experience growing up of like not feeling like I fit in, you know, contributes to that element of like acceptance and openness to other people, you know.
That is so amazing, because I think there's such a parallel too. Like I think it's also a superpower to be able to kind of be exposed to so many different philosophies, like the West and the East growing up, and even, you know, genetically as well, and pick and choose what's best for you, right? Like we don't have to conform to this one set of ideals which is put on us by society. How can we just use our unique talents to our advantage and help people? I think in your case, you can pretty much relate to everybody, because like you have the genes and you have the experiences that people can, you know, come to you and feel heard and seen, I guess, in a way, because not as much as like, of course, like we try not to separate different groups, but we still kind of gravitate towards people that we're familiar with, right?
Yes.
Who has similar upbringings and similar values. So
Yeah.
being that representation really helps a lot and will inspire
Yeah.
our audience for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, just not being like a mixed Asian, but just being an immigrant or first generation in North America or overseas kind of have the same issue as well, because are brought up our parents who come from the East that hold their values versus kind of being taught in this Western society with an individualistic point of view versus the collective society that we came from. It's just, again, that struggle and then conflict that we all share. It's definitely really relevant right now to everybody that's watching. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you think being more conscious help you embrace who you are actually?
I think it absolutely helps.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps. Sometimes it's a blessing and it's a curse, because sometimes I wish that I could be just more traditional, because I think definitely trying to carve my own path comes with its own difficulties and its own sort of like really needing to like trust myself and like really needing to like fight against like the typical like expectation. So like I got really sick in December, and so I stopped or sorry, like towards the end of January. So I stopped like doing official social work. I was working for I was doing like child welfare work, and I was working for a few attorneys doing child welfare work, and I was also working like in drug and alcohol treatment centers. And so, I mean, which I all think that experience helps to inform like me as a consultant, because there's that client. It really helped me further my natural ability to connect with people and really understand like what people need and kind of hear what they need and also give my recommendations. So I think having a background in social work helps, to have that sort of, because you can take those sort of clinical skills of working with people into any industry, because I think people want to be heard, people want to feel understood. And I mean, that's my purpose, and my mission as a consultant is to really be able to address my clients' needs, whatever that is. And so right now it just seems to be in this area of like a lot of independent businesses need social media work, and so I think being, meditating and being grounded in myself helps me to better understand and better connect with people. And so maybe my company's not exactly where I want it to be, but this is a great start, and I think having that sort of conscious connection like allows me to sort of go, okay, so this is kind of where the flow is going right now. So like, let me take this flow for a little bit, and then I'm sure it will transition, so it allows me to sort of let go a little bit in that sense. But to tap back to your question or your original question is, I think it has helped a lot with just various things that I dealt with growing up. I suffered from, I struggled with an eating disorder growing up, and like I think like feeling that like lack of control growing up, so I think that's been like meditation has been really, really helpful a lot in calming the anxiety, and also being more in tune with my body, and sort of allowing me to really still be in touch with like my truth. And being back at my parents' home, sometimes it gets a little colluded because my parents mean well and they want me to be secure, and they see me sort of like starting my own company and sort of coming out of this like transition era. And so they're really wanting me to be secure, and so then I get like confused, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm making the wrong decision, and maybe I should just like stick to something more traditional like law. That was always on the table for me to be a lawyer. And so, considering that my father's an attorney, so there's a very easy open avenue to go to his office and learn from him and work with him as well. And I've potentially thought of going in as an independent contractor and doing some of my organizational management work for him, but you know, there's always that sort of like route to go to law school, which is more secure and more known, you know. So I feel like I'm still sort of like fighting between this, like I want my own life, and I'm trying to like shape out my own life. And like my parents were like, we just want you to be secure, we just want you to be okay, you know. And so then I'm getting all this different information right now.
Yeah, I think that has to do with the values of the two different sets of cultures. So with the Eastern culture, they really thrive of security, right? So everything has to be certain. We have to save enough money so that we can like retire by a certain age, that we don't have to starve to death and be on the streets type of thing, right?
Exactly.
Versus like with like Western society, it really thrives of what truly is aligned to you and what makes you happy, right? Like there's none of the sucking it up, saving face, or making us look good by having a certain title, right? So I think that whole opposite spectrum makes it really hard for us who are kind of like stuck in the middle to figure out what's best for us, right? It's like, do we listen to ourselves? But if we listen to ourselves too much, maybe we will starve. Like it's like, you know, that whole dance. It's like, then how do we balance it? It's the question, right? So what I found is that like I'm a flight attendant. So what and I have a lot of time off. So like, I'm very grateful for that. So it's like having that, well, right now we're on hiatus, but like when I go back to, you know, normal life, then I can just work like maybe 10 days a month and then have the rest of the 20 days to work on my business, right? Or on this channel, which then by the time this business takes off and can generate enough income on its own, then you can kind of let go of the more secure job and follow your passion. So it's having that balance of like not being impulsive and just follow your dreams, but without like a solid plan, and versus, okay, just follow the traditional path and not be happy, right? It's like you can have both, but there's a strategy to it, I guess. Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask you too, like, so like, do your parents ever say or understand what you do, number one, and think that maybe it's a little woo-woo because it's like consciousness and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I get a lot of flack for like being really spiritual and being like a hippie, and like, you know, I have incense everywhere and crystals everywhere, and I'm constantly like burning candles, and I'm constantly like saging myself. And so I get a lot of flack from that. And my mom's, you know, Buddhist, and so she's always worried that I'm invoking like negative spirits or something. And so yeah, I think my dad thinks it's more of like my dad thinks it's more of like a rich hippie thing, because like I like to go to the beach, and I like to like do different stuff like that. So he thinks it's more of like this sort of like hippie thing, which I think it is too, you know.
In a way, it's kind of a trend.
I think it's just more of that sort of free-spirited element. It's how I am able to express that sort of free-spirited element that I don't feel like I always get to express, because I think even in traditional society, you know, like going to college, and like all my friends have most of my friends, if not all, have traditional, you know, jobs. You know, they're bankers, or they have, you know, 9-to-5s, and they have salaries, and they have 401ks, and you know, it's hard for me sometimes to compare myself to that, because even social work to an extent is not a very traditional, you know, work environment. You know, so I've always sort
according
of
to the Asian
like,
culture.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. According to the Asian culture. Yeah. I've always sort of felt like I was carving my own path, even when I was in college, even when I was in grad school. I wasn't, you know, because a lot of people were interested in being therapists, and I was never interested in being a therapist. And so I even chose the non-traditional social work path. And so a lot of the people that I know who did that also did like dual degrees with like MPAs. And so a lot of them are working for nonprofits, or they're working for the city, or they're working for DCFS, you know, social services, children's social services. So they're still doing traditional work, maybe just in a non-traditional social work environment. And so with me, like kind of having had that experience in the traditional work environment and traditional social work environment, now and then now really like wanting to commit to my business, I feel like I'm in this like twilight zone where I like again, like coming back to like, can I trust myself? Is this the right move? Like, I don't have any steady income coming in. Like, do I need to get like a part-time job? Like, you know, what do I need right now? And how do I give myself the space to continue exploring this while also meeting those like needs of security, you know?
So yeah, I think, well, I mean, for me, I think just having a part-time job, just so that you have like that basic secure income without having to force yourself to produce certain outcomes in your business, give you kind of like a mental freedom to work on it instead of being forced to do things just because of money. Like that intention makes a huge difference, because like your clients can feel it if you are forcing it because of like, you know, monetary needs, right? Versus of like your true intention to give. I think every time we give value to other people, like the money will come in terms like laws of attraction, right? Like the universe will always like respond to you kind of in a way. But it's like, just having that balance is tough for sure. For me personally, I do a lot of personality testings as well. And I'm sure you do like astrology and all of that stuff to kind of like get to know myself.
Absolutely.
Do you know human design?
Yes, I do.
Yes. What are you?
I'm a manifester.
Okay, nice. Very nice. I said that's the best type. I'm a projector. So
how does that play out?
It's hard because projectors are pretty much not very good at finding ourselves, but that's always the question that I'm asking myself. It's like, who am I? Like constantly. But the projectors are supposed to be really good at seeing other people though. So we're supposed to be like the guides who guide people into their direction so that they can manifest things on their own. So projectors are interesting because most of the populations are generators, right? So they're like the people who are doing the work, which is most of society right now. And most things that we're taught right now are geared towards the generators.
Right.
Not the projectors. Now, manifestors can make whatever happen anyway, so it doesn't matter. They don't need other people's help in a way. But projectors needs to be recognized for our gifts, and we're not supposed to even tell you advice, even though we know like what's best for you, unless we're invited to do so. So that's difficult. So I guess that's why I kind of started to do this type of interview setting, because it's easier for me to bounce ideas off people, number one, and kind of like be the host to ask questions. So to be the guide instead of like the face, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that actually helps with pinpointing my niche as well. In terms of but I combine a lot of different tests as well. So also the 16 personalities test. You and the campaigner, right?
Yes, I'm the campaigner. How did you know?
I remember I saw it on the on your website. So ENFP, right? Is it ENFP?
Yes.
Yeah. So I am an ISFP, so the adventurer. So I like to try everything, and I'm a Gemini as well.
Oh, okay.
And what astrology are you? Like I like know a little bit.
So I'm a Pisces with Capricorn rising and Scorpio moon.
Nice. Okay.
So do you know your other planets as well?
Yeah. So I'm a Gemini sun, Leo moon, and Taurus rising.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. And the midheaven also really helps me. So I think I'm Aquarius midheaven.
Okay.
So I think that's why what you're saying really resonates with us, because Aquarius is all about being unconventional.
Absolutely.
Like, never following the norm. So that's why I think this whole like thing, it's falling into place, and I'm like really passionate about it when I finally found something. It's because it's like, it's tapping into like my true purpose almost, right? And it makes sense. I don't know if like you find that helpful at all with the midheaven.
Absolutely. My midheaven is actually in Libra, so it's very
like
partnership. So I'm very drawn, partnership, peace, justice, equality. beauty. I think that's
Yeah.
why I like art so much. I also do have Taurus too, so in my
Yes,
chart, so I think that's like where I'm drawn to art and like beauty, and but that's a lot of like Libra. So my midheaven's in Libra, so I've always been found to like, I really prefer like calm environments, peaceful environments. I love when everybody's getting along. I love to bring people together and kind of like meld this like melting pot sort of thing. I just love I love bringing people together. I love being around other people. Yeah, I very much thrive in like partnership. It's hard for me to be alone, I would say, for sure. I mean, I definitely, I think being a Pisces and being very like psychic and like just sort of like, you know, that sort of like having that consciousness element, like makes me very sensitive to energy. And so I do have to like sort of like recuperate and kind of like figure out and like reshift like what's my energy versus somebody else's energy. So I do need like time to be on my own, and I crave my own space a lot. But if I'm by myself for too long, I start to notice too. And so I'm actually like very much on the border of introvert and extrovert. I'm only like I'm like I'm an ambivert. I'm maybe like only 6 to 8% over into the extroverted. So like I like to be around people, but then I also like need to have my own space to recharge. So and I like to think on my own. Like it's hard for me to study around other people. Like I remember in college, like I would always have to like study by myself or like with one other person. I could never do like these like really large study parties because I couldn't focus. So I tend to like to do work on my own, and it helps me like think, and it helps me process. So
I think that's the manifestor thing, actually. They're usually really individualistic. It's like I can make things happen on my own. And also what is it, the G center or the sacral, or well, there's one part of the center that is open, so there's no energy that generates from yourself. Like, so that's the same thing for projector and reflectors as well, where we absorb like energy from the outside environment instead of generating energy from our own source. So then at night you need to dump that and have your own space instead of constantly absorbing other people's energy, because otherwise it would be too much. So it's very interesting how like I think all these tests like really like tell you who you are, because like as a projector I'm constantly trying to figure myself out, and I'm just like I don't even know. I've been so conditioned. So this is like such a good guide to like steer me in the right direction, and has helped me so far. So if our audience want to find out any more information, I will link those tests in the description box below so they can find out.
So cool. Did you just sort of read online about it, or did you like buy more books? Because like I've done sort of like the generic human design profile, but so I know that like, and just from talking to other people who are interested in human design, like I know that like that's why it's sort of hard for me to like articulate projects, because I'm not a generator, I'm the visionary. So I can come up with the idea, but it's a lot of energy for me to sort of articulate things, and so I need generators in my life. So that's why I think the best combination, I have 2 friends who are the manifestor generators. They're I'm the best. So jealous of them because they vision and articulate. And so I'm always so jealous of them because I have so many ideas. I want to do so many things. And then it's like when push comes to shove of like actually having to like articulate it, then I like start to like freak out, you know, and I start to like balk, you know? So it's like, because I would love to be able to do everything on my own, but it's impossible. And then my friend was telling me, he was like, that's not your superpower. Your superpower is to come up with the idea. And then you really need the people to help you articulate what's going on. So,
and that's okay. And that's part of embracing ourselves, right? And just knowing our strengths and weaknesses. And that actually brings me to another test called wealth dynamics. So wealth dynamics teaches you which superpowers you have. So that's exactly what you just talked about. So there's like 9 different ones. So there's one called the creator. So it seems like you might be that one, where you constantly have new ideas. But then you're like not the ones who can produce the systems or the details of it, because I like the same thing. And I'm the archetype of the supporter and the star. So it's like, that's why, again, this channel makes total sense. It's like, I shouldn't be, I am the face because I'm the host, but then at the same time, I need to interview people because I'm the supporting person. Like, I'm not the main, like, you know, but at
Sure,
the same time, I
sure,
am the main person. So it's
sure.
like a perfect dynamic. However, I miss everything on the other side where there's the systems and the details and even the
Yeah,
creative idea. I need someone
yeah,
else to like feed off of. So
gotcha.
it's very interesting to realize that. And
Yeah,
because a lot of entrepreneurs are like, we have to do everything ourselves,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
we need to be good at creating, we need to be good at systems, we have to be good at everything, but like we can't because we don't
yeah,
have all those gifts. And yeah, it's totally okay. But to even figure out what you're good at though can be hard. Some people are very in tune with themselves. It's like but then I'm not one of those people, again, because I'm a projector, can't see ourselves. So doing these tests definitely just great guidance. So again, I'll link that in the description box below. But that one costs money though.
oh,
But then
gotcha.
most of the other stuff are pretty much free.
So it's called wealth dynamics. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I
Yeah, I'll
think
check it
they were
out.
like 50% off last
Oh,
week. I'm not
wow.
sure what it is now, but it's still like $50, right? Because it's like originally $100, so it's like not cheap. But then it's just really good to know, like, what role do we play best in terms of
Sure,
accumulating wealth specifically? Yeah, which is especially if
gotcha.
you want to start a business, that's very
Yeah,
useful. Yeah,
gotcha. I'll
yeah.
check it
Then you
out.
know who to bring on the team with you,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and combining with human design as well, because you
yeah,
know you need a generator, and so do I.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like they can work, and then we come up with the ideas.
yeah, exactly.
So, what type of service do you provide right now? Do you like do one-on-one coaching or consulting?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I'm sort of coming in with this mentality of like, what does the client need? So I'm finding that
Yes.
a lot of clients need organizational management work. And so right
Mm-hmm.
now, what that is sort of sub focusing into is social media management. So
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned before, I worked with the independent clothing company up in Washington, and so
Yes.
they needed social media management work. And
Right.
so, and then I have a potential opportunity with this art gallery, and they also need social media management. It's management. It's a brand
Mm-hmm.
new gallery that just opened up, and so they're trying to grow their presence. And with COVID and everything being shut
Yeah.
down, I think that it's an important avenue to continue. Like the digital world never shuts down, which is like,
No.
thank God for that, right?
Yeah.
So to kind of really launch that digital presence to,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully accrue revenue while things are still sort of shut down. Um,
Yeah, because
So
it's
right
going to be the
now,
new paradigm,
yeah,
pretty much, right? Like working online.
yeah.
Yeah. So since we're talking about consciousness, so why is it so important for businesses to be conscious, do you think?
Well, I mean, ultimately, saying I would love to see my business efforts grow more into a larger scale social impact. And so I
Yes.
haven't quite articulated how that's going to
Mm,
happen just yet.
right.
But like I think that it's important that more companies with money like have
Mm-hmm.
an understanding that they have um a real ability to make an impact, like this idea of conscious capitalism. And so it's
Yeah.
like, how can companies um have a specific sector where they can donate pro bono time, pro bono
Mm,
money,
yeah.
services to, third, third world areas, or areas that potentially need more support or have civil rights and like civil rights issues, like the
Mm-hmm.
Southeast Asia. There's a lot of civil rights infringements there. Like this whole
Mm-hmm.
case that we did the video for, was a
Yeah.
massive social right, like civil rights infringement. Like this woman's basic civil rights
Yes.
was not taken care of. She can't testify at her own trial,
Yeah.
which is illegal.
That's
you know
right.
you
Yeah.
and even though that the traffickers like expressed and confessed that like they wrongfully convinced her to travel, like she's still being held, and and she's a Filipino citizen, and the Filipino country is like, oh, it's not our responsibility, and so she's in Indonesia by herself on death row, just like sort of like,
Wow.
in this like limbo phase and like awaiting death,
Wow.
you know
Yeah.
so I would love to see more of my company becoming a global platform. And so
Mm,
whether that becomes more podcasting and connecting with and doing exactly what you're doing, sort of like
mm-hmm.
reaching out and connecting with people who you know, who are sort of have along those same lines and same vein of wanting to impact society on a really big level. You know, my Saturn is an Aquarius, so it's like I have, and so, and
That makes
Saturn
sense.
just
I was like,
went
you must have some Aquarius in you.
absolutely, yeah. And so, and then Saturn just went into Aquarius, and so I think that that's this whole thing that I'm going through right now of like realigning my purpose and realigning like my greater destiny to what it's like really supposed to be. And I really think that I'm supposed to be like a public figure on sort of like a larger mass scale to create awareness, you know. And so I would really love to spend more time doing creative efforts to create awareness about what's going on in the world. You know, I was just in Brazil last March, and not this most recent March, but 2019. Yeah, last 2019. And, you know, we are studying LGBT rights, and their president is very similar to like our current president. And so there's a very like, you know, strict, expectations of heteronormative marriages, and Brazil has typically always been sort of an LGBT safe haven. And so a lot of LGBT like community people are finding that they're receiving less services, and they're not, you know, again, like that sort of basic civil rights and human rights. And so we were studying that, and we went to the mayor's office, and we connected with USC's Brazil location. And so
that's amazing.
So yeah, just being exposed to different, and one of our tour guides like wrote for Brazil Huffington Post. And so, you know, I'm really being able to utilize the social networks and the social media as a digital platform for creating social awareness. That's like ultimately where I would like to see my work like really go, and get paid for it as well, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We definitely want to support you in getting there. And hopefully get the word out so everyone can I'm sure a lot of people believe in that mission as well.
If any of your viewers, you know, need any sort of help or are interested in connecting on, you know, and work in sort of the social change and innovation sort of industry, please feel free to connect with me.
And where can the audience find you?
So they can find me on, so they have my, if you can post my like website,
your Instagram,
and my social, my Instagram and my Facebook and all that information in the link in the interview below. That would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, that's so great. Well, thank you for being on the show. I think like that was very enlightening for the audience to get to know you and what your mission is. And hopefully we'll have you back one day to see your progress, to see your changes, right? And even for us too, we're just a baby as well. We're kind of in the same stage. So that would be great to collaborate again in the future. Absolutely.
And if there's anything, you know, that you can see that we can continue to collaborate and connect, like I would love to see how we can can kind of help each other grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show for now.
Absolutely.
And we'll say bye to our Unconventional Asians audience.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you share the video if you found it useful for your friends to watch as well. Comment in the comment section below if you ever struggle with the same thing and trying to figure out your identity. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more interviews with unconventional Asians, inspiring you to be authentic. Join our community at Unconventional Asians on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to hear more.